Hello and welcome to this spotlight episode on Old Ironsides, a quick look at the first locomotive built by Matthias W. Baldwin. Robert Stephenson's Planet-class locomotive of 1830 was the first modern express passenger locomotive, which would set the mould for the locomotive in Britain for the next 130 years. Planet was not only the first distinct class of locomotive, but the first to be built in any scale. Hitherto, locomotives had been built in ones or twos, and even the 4 locomotives built for the Liverpool and Manchester Railway after Rocket in January 1830 were all different from each other. But with Planet, here was a design which, in terms of the 1830s, was built on a mass scale, at least 100 worldwide, all to a common rod. Planet's locomotives were exported to France, to Austria, Canada, and the United States. The first exported to the United States being the John Bull, delivered to the Camden and Amboy Railroad in the summer of 1831. Matthias Baldwin of Philadelphia had witnessed the erection of John Bull during that summer. He was the son of a prominent coach builder and had a natural flair for mechanics. He was in business as a tool and machine maker and had, in 1828, built his first stationary steam engine. This set him in good stead to build a large-scale working model of one of the rental trial entries, which could pull 4 passengers in a tiny carriage for the Philadelphia City Museum. But it was one thing to have built a model locomotive, to building a full-size one. Yet, when approached by the Philadelphia, Germantown and Norristown Railroad, he agreed to build one. In order to do so, he visited the workshops of the Newcastle and Frenchtown Railroad, where their latest Stephenson locomotive, the Delaware, was being erected. He took minute measurements of the locomotives and set to work building his own copy, which would come to be known as Old Ironsides after the famous American warship. Old Ironsides was not an exact copy, but would certainly have been close enough to have infringed patent law. She was smaller than the Delaware, with cylinders 9.5 by 18 inches, wooden 4 feet 6 inch diameter driving wheels, and a smaller boiler with 72 tubes. In working trim, she weighed about 6 tons compared to the 9 tons of the Delaware. Yet in building her, Baldwin had made a fatal mistake. On the Stephenson original, the exhaust steam from the cylinders is routed towards the blast pipe using a pair of curved exhaust pipes. Baldwin, however, either because he couldn't have such complicated castings made, or that he thought he could improve on the Stephenson design, eschewed this and instead used a simple T-shaped exhaust system. This was a serious problem, as it meant that the exhaust from one cylinder beat against that from the other. Instead of the steam being directed up and away from the cylinders to clear the exhaust, it was directed towards the other exhaust. This led to high back pressure in the cylinders and, as the regulator was opened further, caused the locomotives to steam very badly and become choked. Her first run was on the 23rd of November 1832, where she was found to be, quote, not entirely satisfactory, and it took Baldwin months of work to tweak his new engine. Baldwin was finally paid $3,500 for her in January 1833, some $500 less than the contract price, due to the extra work needed. She was also, however, far more expensive, including the import tariffs, than an imported Stephenson locomotive. We don't know how long Old Ironsides was in use due to her small size and light weight. Certainly by 1837 she was, quote, so much out of repair that her owners, quote, doubted the expediency of expending the requisite sum to make her substantially useful, and her disposal will be a matter of consideration, end quote. In March 1838, however, she was returned to Baldwin for overhaul, and she continued in service for another 8 years, when she was used as part payment with Baldwin for a new locomotive. But this was not the end of the little machine, as she is recorded as being in service as late as 1853, and is recorded by one newspaper as still being in existence in 1869. By 1876, however, she had been broken up, and despite an exhaustive search by the Baldwin Company, all that could be found were, quote, a lever or two and the nameplate, end quote. a full-size static replica was built in 1893 for the Columbian Exposition in Chicago. So that's been a quick look at old Ironsides, the first of the 75,000 locomotives built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works. And it's rather ironic really, given that Baldwin said of old Ironsides that she would be his first and certainly his last locomotive. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, please leave a comment below. If you haven't already, please like, share and subscribe. I'd also like to thank all of my Patreons for their continued support, and if you'd like to get early access to my channel content, if you feel able, you can do so for as little as a takeout cup of coffee once per month. And I hope to see you next time on Rail Story.